In a callous display of political ideology, Mississippi's Republican Governor Tate Reeves has shamefully withdrawn from a federal program designed to provide essential food support to children from low income families during summer break. Reeves, along with 15 other GOP governors, frivolously rejected federally funded food programs, leaving over 8 million children without crucial assistance. This decision, justified under the guise of resisting the so called welfare state, exposes a stark disregard for the well being of vulnerable children. Critics rightfully condemn this move as an act of cruelty, highlighting the misplaced priorities that prioritize stadium construction over feeding hungry children. This story is from The Guardian by Gloria Oladipo on January the 13th, 2024.
This is what conservatives, I guess, mean by family values. It's no surprise that they mean white middle class or indeed upper class families. They're basically still conducting a war on the poverty, but it's really the war on the poor people themselves. This is a real tragic and self-inflicted wound on the character of the United States. So Mississippi is poor. I mean, we're talking poor. I think it's the poorest state in the union. Its people are largely poor and some desperately so. And they're the ones who get the kind of help that these EBT cards give them. And all they're doing is they're getting a food card. They have to buy food with it. You know, there's a limited thing. And, you know, it's always there. The conservatives are always using that old trope of bootstrapping. You are lazy and have no ambition, and unless you know, that's why you're poor. You know, look at this guy; he made it. Why can't you? Well, because he happened to get lucky enough to get an opportunity to go to school. You know, and it was something that happened to that one person. It doesn't mean he has necessarily, though usually there's some room for discussion there, but he doesn't necessarily have more skills or more intelligence or more schooling in the local neighborhood than anybody else. Sometimes they do if they have relatives who are tutoring them, but they can't afford a tutor. So all this is besides the point. The point is, this is just another attack on people who are vulnerable and cannot fight back. So this is a bully's tactic, and that's what they're using. They're using really, really poor excuses. I have an awful lot to say on this that I would just rather let Helen take it from here.
Oh, I have a lot to say too. So, and I have to say, and I'm pretty much sure we're all in agreement that you have to be like a special kind of evil to take away federal funding and refuse it that is supposed to go to help feed children in your state. There's something very, very messed up about that. And I don't know what's going on in Mississippi. I'm a neighbor of it where I am in Florida, and I'm not saying Florida's much better, but I would have to imagine that also there's poor people, and those poor people, I would have to imagine some of them are conservatives. And if you find out that, oh my goodness, like this money was supposed to help pay for, you know, at least lunch through summer and into the school year, now my kid is going to go hungry. And I can't help but thinking, like, you know, Republican officials are kind of just shooting themselves in the foot from my perspective. And I can understand if this funding, instead of going to feeding children was going to go to, the education budget, or was going to go to Medicaid or Medicare funding, things that actually help the citizens that live in that state. And I'm disgusted that like federal money in the past in Mississippi was also used for very frivolous things, such as a special favor to a former football quarterback that a volleyball court be built at his daughter's school. I want to remind our audience that money was supposed to go to welfare programs. So let's just all take a moment. Let's reflect how very screwed up that is. So I do have more to say, but I'm going to send it over to my bud over there, Scott.
All right, bring it on down.
And he can also tell us how disgusted he is by all this.
I thought you were going to pass off to the cat there for a second, so I'm glad I have priority over the cat there.
Candace does have opinions. She does have very strong opinions on.
Well, sometimes it's hard to hold the tongue. It's hard to hold the tongue, but you've both mentioned so far that Mississippi is a very economically depressed state, and they have, and as it turns out, it's kind of ironic that the governor doesn't want to further the quote unquote welfare state because Mississippi receives more federal aid than any other state as a percentage of their state general revenue, 40.9%. So in other words, if for every dollar that Mississippi makes on their own, the federal government gives them an additional 41 cents. So in fact, the article that we read mentioned that there were 12 states that have also refused this federal aid. And of those 12 states, 9 of them were in the top 25 states as far as the amount of aid that they get from the federal government. And 4 of them were in the top 10. So if we really want to get technical, Mississippi really is the welfare state. I mean, so let's, call it what it is here. No, that's not to say that they shouldn't get the help just because their governor is saying no. I mean, here in America, as human beings, just to be a human being, we like to share with each other. We like to support each other. We work together. We make up for each other's weaknesses, and we all have weaknesses, and we all need help from each other. And so it's nice that that kind of safety net is available. It's a shame that that politics is getting in the way of getting food into children's bellies. And to make things worse, there's also a strong correlation between the religiosity and these states where they rely on federal aid. The most modern religions also promote the idea of helping others, loving your neighbors, even loving your enemies. And so the idea of refusing to get this assistance into people's hands that need it just seems, counter to the message from from most major religions, or at least what they say is they're promoting. It's part of the face of the religion, maybe we should say. For example, from the Bible, whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honors God. And that's from Proverbs 14:31. Of course, there's some parts of that I think the panel here would not agree with, but the message, I think, is that you should be helping each other. Another one, this one's from 1 John chapter 3. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with our words or speech, but with our actions and in truth. So notice that I selected a passage from both the New and the Old Testament. So none of this new covenant, we can disregard that Old Testament stuff. It's in both of them, both of your books. I would love to see these quote unquote good Christian folks back up their words and speech with actions and listen to what their book says. Phil, what do you think about that?
Regarding what you just said, I always say there's no hate. There's no hate like Christian love. That's the unfortunate thing.
Yes,
and as you pointed out, I realize that, as you realize, a lot of these states that are refusing the federal funding seem to be in the Bible Belt. Yeah, a lot of them are in the Bible Belt. So I think this is a mark against Christians, conservative Christians there, who especially Republican governors, who of course might claim that they are Christian, but yet are not looking out for the welfare of children, which is really sad. I mean, the federal government provided like $5.2 billion in federal assistance for that feeding program, and they are using it for other purposes. Wow, I mean, it's really mind-boggling, and you are having a whole set of claims being made by them, but I can come to that further in the program. Yes, Jonathan, what you have to say about this?
I have, of course, lots to say about it. There's a lot of detail in this particular story. And one of the things that struck me as not just disheartening and frustrating, which it is that the governor and conservative governors, other 14 conservative governors, are making a political statement on the backs of children. The Mississippi, but the only thing that I find amusing to even a slightest extent is the Mississippi State Welfare Agency, probably drastically underfunded by the Mississippi government, if I would not be surprised. Agency says they have no resources to administer the EBT cards. I used to work in EBT system, and it's not all that hard. But it does ruin the governor's attempt to gain street creds with the conservative movement in Mississippi, because it partially, at least, he wanted to join those other conservative states and prove that has bona fides, his street creds with them, and then his own welfare agency comes along and says, we can't do it anyway. And so he lost much of the political bang for his buck, as he may have if it was a unilateral action, and he had the means to do it, but just refused to do it. Which but as Helen has said, it takes a particular type of evil to do this to children, especially children who already have nothing. But another thing stood out to me that really, really got my goat, and that was Kim Reynolds, governor of Iowa, claimed, and this is, I'll quote the other article I read, it's from the Washington Post. Reynolds claimed that the federal assistance program was not a long-term solution. She also claimed that an EBT card does nothing to promote nutrition at a time when childhood obesity has become an epidemic. I don't know about you guys. I'm kind of a little bit into my health, being diabetic, and I have never seen a child or an adult or an old person who was obese, who was in a calorie deficit. Never. They tend to lose weight. If you want to lose weight, go into a calorie deficit. And guess what? You'll lose weight. Don't do it too long like these kids are, because you'll also cause irreversible brain development issues. And that is another tragic thing. And then they're going to claim that you're not as intelligent as the others. Well, guess why? You wouldn't feed me. I'm beyond getting too angry with this from a particular group of people in the United States who happen to have political power. The conservative movement is evil. And if you haven't figured that out yet, I don't know what would prove it. This is 8 million kids who are going to go without food for 3 or 4 months. Maybe they'll be able to get some from their parents and, a little bit. Maybe they'll keep body and soul together. But it is, and I don't believe in a soul, but it is a tragic and stupid self-harm that we do to ourselves. And I am, but her thing saying that was, and not a long-term solution. So what are you going to do with the kids in the short term who are starving? She is an idiot. And I don't mind saying that.
Tell us how you really feel, John. Don't hold back.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop there, Helen. You can take it from there because I'm sure you have some choice words as well.
Yeah, you reminded me of something, because when my kids were small, I was on I was using WIC, which helps get nutrition into young children, because me and my ex-husband at the time were low income. And it's the basic essentials like peanut butter, peas, milk, only certain types of cereals, but it's getting that nutrition at the basic standards to feed children. So now, I don't understand if feeding your child like this is not fancy food. This is just the basic needs for nutrition for children. And I don't understand why that is so damn hard for these people. I just don't get it. And now I move on to my next point. Now, I'm just going to say that isn't it a little weird that no matter what state you live in, or if the money is being allocated and given from the federal to state level, that we still all pay taxes, yet we don't get to decide where that money is going to go? And wouldn't it be really nice if we as the American populace, when the federal government is saying, hey, we're going to give money to your state to feed children or whatever government program they want to allocate that money to, that the populace gets to say yes. Not our elected officials, but the populace does. Because guess what? This affects children that are part of citizens within the state of Mississippi. And I also want to point out, like, income inequality is something, it is constantly talked about in government, yet it's somehow always the poor's fault. And I find it gross when anyone says, let alone a government, that we don't believe in welfare. Well, unlike your God, we can prove that welfare is a thing, and people need it for basic human resources. And now 8 million children over the summer into the school year are going to go hungry. 8 million children. And it will have a snowball effect, because once we go into the school year, once that happens, they're not going to be able to concentrate. There's going to be social stigmatization, classism. They're going to not be able to keep their grades up. They're going to fall behind. And instead of blaming where the shame and blame should be put upon, which is the officials, they're going to blame the poor and these children for not living up to whatever goddamn standard they're trying to put on them. And I find it disgusting when people want to play fucking politics when we're talking about kids' lives. So that's my deep-seated feelings. So anyway, take it from me, Scott. Please do.
Yeah, that was a beautifully put there at the end, Helen. And to touch briefly on what Jonathan was saying about the governor of Iowa saying that this is not a long-term solution, and been talking about obese children. No, a child is a child. Okay, a child deserves to have a healthy diet. Okay, they deserve, that's just bare minimum support. And if a parent was withholding food from their children, you would say that was a bad parent. And so it's the same situation. We're all in this together. This is a state. We're all chipping in money to help these people. Let us help them, let it happen. These are children. They need a balanced diet. And this is not, completely subsidizing year round. This is about the summer gap, right? Many children nowadays, people wonder why school is, education is so expensive these days, because so many kids are getting that's their primary source for food. Their food security comes from their school. Their health care comes from their school. Their mental health care comes from their school. Their daycare comes from their school, their psychological support, everything. All of this support is coming from the school. And then when the summertime rolls around, they still need to eat then, as far as I know. My kids still need, I don't know if my kids are freaks of nature or something, but they still got hungry in the summer. And so when the schools aren't open to be able to support that, I know, isn't that crazy? When the schools aren't there to support to support this need, then it's got to come from somewhere. And, pushing away food or pushing away dollars that have already been earmarked for this specific purpose, I don't know. It's frustrating. And I know this, we're not talking about the state of Mississippi or the people of Mississippi. Okay. I know people from Mississippi, and some of the most wonderful people come from there. My brother thinks it's like the food capital of the world in Mississippi. But so there's lots going on there in that's wonderful in the state. But it could be the leaders. I don't know. And I have a question that I wanted to ask the panel here. We've been talking about hypocrisy a little bit, but if the governor of a state believes that a policy is beneficial to the state, even though it goes against their personal beliefs, would that mean the governor was being hypocritical? Okay, so what I'm asking you is, the governor might believe that it's good to support this kind of policy, maybe, I don't know. But if he thinks it's in the best interest to not do that, do you think that would be hypocritical? And do you think that would be a good reason to reject these dollars? Phil, what do you think about that? Is the governor putting the state's needs above their own perceived, best policy?
Well, I think regardless of whatever it is, it should always boil down to the children and what is good for the children, regardless of whatever policy or their whole. It should always be what is best for the children. And the governor, he has not looked at what is best for children. I think he's looking more at his pockets. And then, as we said before, money is being siphoned off to things that are not priority. They're not priority. Mm-hmm. Children are a greater priority than a stadium, building a volleyball stadium, right? Greater than other little things that don't even help these children in the long run in terms of to keep their mentally stable and to be able to concentrate. They need that food during the summer. They need a food program. They need a balanced food program, which needs to be supplied, especially when you have lower income families who cannot support their children's nutrition to that level. The governor, they need that, and that funding was there, provided for them. But it is wickedness when a governor can take the money and siphon it off into other things when it was not there for that purpose. It was there for the children. So I find these guys are just giving some stupid excuses. Real stupid, extremely stupid excuses. What is more important? The social welfare of low-income families. That is what is more important than anything else. Yes, John?
John, I want to state the question again here. I want to know if the governor actually thought that was the best for the state, if that was the best fiscal decision, the best social decision, the best moral decision. If the governor thought that was the best decision, despite the fact maybe he personally believed that he would rather give the food to the children or give the money to the families, do you think that would justify that kind of policy decision?
It's a little bit nuanced and a little bit complex as a question, because if it was in the best interest of the children to turn down the money, like say the state of Mississippi had a better program they'd have to give up if this federal program was instituted, I could see that as a moral decision. It should never be a political decision to feed kids.
Okay, Helen, we'll get your quick input on this question, and then we'll wrap things up here. What do you think?
Yeah.
Could it be justified if he thought it was good for the state?
My kind of feeling on this is that he is representing the state of Mississippi. He got elected into that position. And even though he may not agree with it, and even if he thinks that it's a sound decision to reject it, but if that ends up with his constituents and the children of a state suffering, whatever justification he makes, I'm going to be like, you're not doing your job. You're not doing the things you need to do to take care of the people in your state. And that, whether I think if it's hypocritical or not, that's not the point. To me, it's like you are rejecting help.
So,
especially when it comes to kids.
There's a clear need there and a clear solution, and just make it happen, right? Make it happen. All right. Well, this was a great discussion. Thanks, Jonathan, Phil, and Helen for joining me. And if you would like to see more discussions just like this, you can click right here.